Namaskar. A warm good afternoon to all of you. I take this opportunity to thank uh, IIT Gandhinagar for organizing this international conference in collaboration with IGNC and Ministry of Culture. I'll be talking about some of the reflections from the research which I have done with some of the analytical studies and the conservation work done with some Harappan copper artifacts from few excavated sites. Before I start, I would take this opportunity again to thank the Department of Archaeology, Professor Ajit Prasad, Professor Janardhan Martinoyer, Professor Bhan, Professor Krishna, Professor Sona, and all my teachers for permitting me to do this research while I was working with them in that department. Moving further, I would like to share with you some of those images of the copper artifacts from Bagasra to get an idea of the type of objects we have got. These are some unique ones, the major classic collections in terms of the copper artifacts are concerned. So we have the razor and the bone handle knife and the chisel. So this chisel is a part of the copper hoard which I've got, which has contained a vessel in which we had 8 bankers and the chisel. So moving on, while studying the copper artifacts from Bagasra, the first thing which I did was documenting them as a part of the collection management, documenting them, numbering them, as well as doing a statistical analysis of the typology and the total number of objects from various phases. So we could see in the phase 2, we had 100 objects, and phase 3, we had 110 objects. If you look at the objects, majority of them were in good condition, but of course, a lot of them were even heavily corroded. And that is the case with almost all the sites as far as the copper artifacts are concerned. Moving further, looking at the Shikarpur, this is only from one season image which I'm sharing with you, which has some rods and then chisels, arrowheads, knife blades, ring, and the weighing pan. You could see how much heavily they are corroded and a lot of siliceous deposit on them. So this is just to show the varied types of objects from Shikarpur. While doing this research, major UGC major research project on the copper artifacts, I could make a lot of drawings of all these objects from various sites. So these are some of the drawings which I have developed for Bagasra, Nagwada, Jaidak, for Shikarpur. Basically, because they were majority of them were in very undiagnostic fragments, and to put them into sequence and then make meaning or maybe a kind of understanding about the morphology of the actual object. So, and also using it for report. So the drawings has been developed. Looking into the quality of the objects. So now when you look at the Nagwada, large number of objects were in the prills category, smaller one, undiagnostic. And because of the heavy corrosion, they were broken, they were fragile, D-shaped. It was very difficult to get any part of them, any small portion of them for analysis. So while observing the variety of objects from all these varied sites, major problems observed in terms of the life of the material in terms of corrosion. It was majority of them heavily corroded. They are corroded to that extent. The core is almost now getting, finishing off. They have extensive active corrosion pockets. They got damaged with the morphology. But samples were selected for the composition analysis from some selective objects. Now, the point here is after looking at the condition of the objects in the name of collection management, what first I did was as a part of Global Heritage Fund, thanks to Mark and the team, where they were facilitating us with Global Heritage Fund, or facilitated with us, giving fund to do the documentation, the data management of our all the artifacts from Harappan sites. Of course, so Papa being one among the group, so we were able to do that. So we started with taking care of them. So it's earlier storage in the brown packets and the brown boxes where converted into transparent boxes with labeling on top, and at the form as the support system where the object will get proper resting. And then since it's transparent and labeled on top, there is no need of unwanted opening of them, so avoiding the mishandling and leading to a situation of less handling, minimum handling, and thereby providing this object proper housing, mount, and support to stay in the storage. So the preventive conservation, in terms of conservation, when we talk, this is one of the steps we have taken up. In terms of professional cleaning, professional conservation in terms of treating the objects, copper heart from Bagasra was heavily filled with soil when we got it in situ position, and then we slowly removed the bangles from it, chisel from it, cleaned them under the microscope, and coated them. So here you can see after documentation, they have also got the digital numbers done, and they have taken it to the digital database of the FilePro database, which we maintained. And also, when you look at the copper vessel, this has been heavily corroded. It has been sequentially cleaned, and the final stage, we have done a benzotriazole treatment on the pockets where there were active corrosion. And this is a picture basically showing the physical cleaning of those active spots. And finally, we have done a coating of paralloid resin of B72 on these objects to protect them. But I should accept that when I was there, periodically when we checked it after 6 months, it's found that some of the pockets then again coming up. So we had to remove the coating and then redo the physical cleaning, or then apply the inhibitor on top of it, and then again giving a coating. So this has been monitored heavily and then taken care of. So this is one step of professional treatment which I've done on this copper vessel. Apart from that, there is a lot of breakages, the fragments, so breakages on the unique objects. So this, you could see, this is a razor which has been cleaned under the microscope, physically cleaning. And the blade, which is getting the blade and the bone handle is treated with isopropyl alcohol. Here I take this opportunity to thank Paul Jett and Shan Sharet. Paul Jett that time from Freer and Sackler, and Shan Sharet was working on project. So they helped us to do this cleaning part under the microscope, and then joining and all with proper care. So part of the conservation of various objects. And finally, we have, along with providing them a proper housing with ethaform and the drawing on top, and then the cotton threads, which has been used for tying up, and ethaform is inert material where that will not affect the objects or may not absorb any more moisture. So they will not create issue. But at the same time, we made it a point that the containers which we used were having some silica gel in the plastic bags where they are perforated so that this silica gel could breathe in, breathe out. And then we have kept these few objects in this kind of closed containers to give them a microclimate situation where, and in the storage, housing, and then in the storage, regular monitoring and taking care of them. So this was a bit about the conservation, what we could do with these copper artifacts from the various sites, just citing few examples. So there are some problems, like just when we're looking at, that was the physical and morphological caretaking, but moving into the bit of the analytical study, what is the nature of corrosion products, and is there any alloy pattern? There are many researches done earlier also talking about possibilities of patterns in terms of alloys. So is there anything like that? So these are a few problems I kept in mind when I was trying to do an analysis. So we collected almost 26 samples from various sites like Bagasra, Shikarpur, Nagwada, and then Jaidak. Padri Deccan College had sent some, so I could get only one. And Kanmer, Jeevan had shared a few, and Navinal was a site which Rajesh has from Kerala University done some exploration. So some sites where we could, our site from the department and few more sites, but I'm only detaching up the sites of the Department of Archaeology, what we had excavated. So I could do some SEM and ADS analysis. from our own Faculty of Technology using their Georgia's SEM machine. So looking at the analysis of Bagasra, the result is here in front of you on the table. What we have seen, along with the copper, zinc was a major element. So it could be copper zinc alloy, but also some of them, interestingly, had shown high tin and traces of, continuing with the next element, arsenic has been shown in very traces. Iron is also there. So, and lead, yes, of course, some of them have high lead also. So, specifically this ring. So, this is the basic alloy pattern. I'll show you the rest of the sides also. Then we will come on a kind of bit of comparative, looking at comparative data. So, to get a little more clarity on their analysis, I also have done microstructural studies to look at the technology behind it, but that also helped us to get the percentage of the composition. Here, the Bagasra sample, this one is a broken ring. So that has a composition where the tin was 4.51. So this has a high tin composition, which is showcased. And the next one is basically this bangle, which actually has tin is less, but it has little more zinc, but both have zinc. And then when we look at the Shikarpur sample analysis, we can see some of the samples, they definitely have tin in them. So there is a variation of, there are some of them with high tin. And when you look at the combination, the copper zinc is the major combination which we see. And some has, definitely they have the lead which is coming up, lead seen in almost all of them. Similarly, Nagwada also have some chemical composition in which we could see there is a variation of pattern in terms of the composition. So I picked up Jaidak when I was talking to Ajit sir, and I thought when we were discussing on this, the research point went into looking at whether Jaidak has any signature composition, because it's belong to the regional Chalcolithic. So what is the difference? If any differences coming in between the alloy patterns of a classical site or a regional site? Or just to understand what are the major fabrication techniques, though the certain techniques has been proposed from the earlier scholars from the earlier studies, but just to cross check and see what exactly we could see from the microstructures. So I myself have developed the microstructural polishing samples and developing the microstructures and using it under the microscope. So a sample which is bangle, broken, not broken, it is incomplete, but it is the kada kind of a thing, bangle, kada slash bangle, where the microstructures actually shows, here it is the tin is in a good percentage, but when you look at it, it is absolutely a copper zinc alloy with a little bit high element of composition of tin. This is a wonderful piece because it is a heavy core. There is not much corrosion, just sturdy, and when it was polished, it was giving a good luster. So under the SEM, we could see the twinning lines, which indicate a heat treatment. So moving on from composition to looking at the fabrication and the making and the crafting, this microstructures has given us inputs about the heat treatment and the tactile property of the object and the fabrication technique. And moving further, when I looked at another sample, you can see the picture here, and the number is Bagasra 4494. And the microstructure has shown heavy dendritic pattern. This dendritic pattern gives us input about the casting techniques which has been utilized for developing this dendrites. So casting technique as the fabrication, it is very clear from the microstructures. So when we look at the technical aspect, so it is very clear that the fabrication technique is basically forging and hammering. We could make out from the morphological appearance of the objects itself. So razor may be created out of sheets by forging. Chisels has been forged from cast bars. There is also this kind of indication from early reports like what's reported in way back in 1960. And vessels by singing and racing by forging. So some of those earlier records we could corroborate by studying this, and then we could understand there is a lot of some of those ideas which has been floated earlier itself has been validated through our study. To look at the holistic perspective, when you look into what does this small research talks about. Basically, when I looked at the corrosion products, we have also have done some corrosion analysis also, but limited to the time of 20 minutes, I thought I should narrow down to very small specific things on the analytical part and the conservation thing, what we have done. So zinc is present in almost all the samples. High tin I've seen in few of the samples from Nagwada and Navinal. So 11 out of the 26 objects has given tin more than 2%. So this gives us a kind of, we need to have more studies and more standard samples to authenticate exactly whether we could develop a pattern of that in terms of alloying, whether it is a deliberate alloying and what is the alloying pattern. And 17 out of 26 objects traces shows the trace part of percentage of arsenic. So this is whether it is an arsenial copper which has been utilized for this is again another question which comes to us. But looking at this composition analysis, what I found is that there's no specific alloying pattern which we could claim right now for specific categories of objects. Neither I could say something about regional versus classic has certain thing, but definitely there is something which is coming up. But I think we need to have more authenticate data or more samples to be studied and analyzed to give more concrete hypothesis. So in general, it is one thing is very clear from all the sites what we have in our collection from Bagasra to Shikarpur to Nagwada. The pattern is copper zinc alloy. Some have high tin compositions. And yes, of course, few of them have iron in trace element. Basic pattern of corrosion is oxides and nickel is absent. So basically, so this is a glimpse of what we could do with the copper artifacts, and thank you for listening.